Welcome to the Locked In Podcast, World Cup edition with myself, Mr. NWB. You can find me on Instagram at and the real NWB, and I'm joined by co-host Mr. Zack Tomlinson. Zack, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. The beautiful day to be alive. World Cup has been amazing. Everything's going great.
There we go. And I should point out this show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog. So make sure you check them out. They got some fine odds on the World Cup, NBA, NHL, pretty much every sport. They got a market for it. So check them out. Get in the game. Also, it's the holiday season. As you can see, I'm rugged up, laid up. It's a little bit cold out here in North America, but we got some layers over at the importantnonsense.com shop. So make sure you use the promo code FOOT. Get yourself some nice threads. Warm up, look good this holiday season. Shop.importantnonsense.com. I believe Jack Kavanaugh's and his mustache are on a t-shirt out there. There's some fine things to look at there. Finally, just before we get into things, if you're not already a part of our Patreon, head over to patreon.com/importantnonsense and join our Discord, because you're going to find so many nuggets of information from guys like Zack Tomlinson, Vishal Gupta, Mason. All these guys are just going to be dropping nuggets. They're going to help you not only during the World Cup, but on NFL Sunday, throughout the NHL and NBA seasons. When F1 comes back, we'll be about that. Make sure you're involved. Join our Discord and get involved. Zack, it's been 17 days of consecutive World Cup football, soccer. Is it football or soccer, by the way?
That's why it's called Footie Fixtures of the Week on importantnonsense.com, because, we like to find a middle ground where we can. So, but I go by both, you know what I mean? It's just depends on who I'm talking to. So up to you.
There we go. Well, we've had, 2 to 3 weeks of wonderful action over in the Middle East, and it's been a pleasant surprise. I thought we were gonna, I didn't know what to expect, but hey, we got some upsets, we got some good results, and we're now into the quarterfinals, the final 8. We're going to get to that eventually, but let's start off by recapping the group stage. So, Group A, as you remember, had Senegal, Ecuador, Qatar, the hosts, and the Dutch, the Netherlands. What was your key takeaway from this group, Zach?
I guess if we're taking one takeaway for me, I think it's Senegal and how they were able to overcome Sadio Mane's injury, and still, again, we have hindsight 2020, having seen the first round of knockouts. But even in that game, we can touch on that later. But at no point where do they have anything to be embarrassed about. They absolutely crushed it. Even Ecuador, they won that first game against Qatar. Qatar pretty poor, it has to be said, throughout the group stage. But it felt like that gave Ecuador maybe a little bit of an upper hand. Senegal, it took a lot for the Dutch to beat them in that first game, if you remember. They scored, it ended up being 2-0, but they scored in the 98th minute or something, a stoppage time. It was a very close game, and obviously, they got second in the group. And I don't know if a lot of people would have thought that, especially getting the news that Sadio Mane was going to miss the entirety of the tournament. That's pretty impressive.
Absolutely, and they definitely put up a rearguard action. The likes of Koulibaly and Mendy defense, they definitely held things up. They're unlucky against the Dutch to concede the 2 late goals they did, but they I guess they recovered and they got it going later on in the remaining 2 games. So we'll get to the match against England later on. But for me, Qatar was bad.
I had not high hopes, but I just at moments it felt like it just felt like you didn't see, I'll never forget South Africa in their 2010 tournament. That was probably one of the first times in my life I'd ever seen a team play with such heart, and that was probably pretty comparable to the team that Qatar put out there, in terms of not having a lot of players that played in any major league in the world. And I don't know, it just wasn't, it didn't feel the same. So I was a little let down by like, I don't know how much of that is up to coaching or whatnot, but I don't know. They were very disappointing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, to not get a point, pretty sure it was just one goal scored. I mean,
Yeah.
South Africa in 2010, they beat France. They got a draw against Mexico. They only missed out on the knockout stages by goal difference, but Qatar wasn't even in the
Not in the
frame. So
conversation. Yeah.
I don't even know if they're going to make it to a 48 team World Cup next time, but we shall see. One team that will be in the 48 team format, which is proposed by FIFA in 2026, is the USA. They are part of
Mm.
Group B, along with England, Iran, and Wales. So Zach, that's your team, the Stars and Stripes. Take us through that.
Well, I mean, if you caught our last episode, it was at a time where the U.S. were entering this tournament in poor form, it has to be said. I mean, maybe not defensively, and there was always a couple key players that weren't missing, so we hadn't seen our full-on starting 11 up until this tournament. But I'll just stick to group stage for now. I mean, the U.S. it was amazing. Like any fan of U.S. soccer, I don't think you got moments of extreme disappointment, such as conceding that penalty against Wales in what was it, 80th minute or late in the second half, basically giving them a point and taking away two of our points. But that game against England, for me, I mean, that was one of the most proudful moments I've had as a fan of U.S. soccer, because we just took it to them. It wasn't like we've had good results against England in the past, but it's been from kind of just pure grit and heart and just one man versus another man just competing. In this game, there was a mixture of the tactics going into the game were just spot on from the manager, and as well as the players executing it on an incredible level. So for me, it was one of the most enjoyable 90 minutes of football slash soccer slash footy I've ever seen in my entire life. Just, it was fantastic. And Iran, we needed a win, and we got the win. And we could, our problem in the entire group stage, to summarize it in like a sentence, is we got to find a striker, just some killer out there that is just going to just punish people, and it's hard to find, obviously. But again, there's always that argument for the US is like, we got the NFL, we got the NBA. Like, there are athletes in this country that are capable of doing that. It's just a matter of them wanting to play this sport and then us finding them and giving them the opportunity. So we'll see. But in whole, I mean, nothing but positives to take away from the group stage from a U.S. standpoint for me.
All right. Well, we'll hold that thought for a moment because I'm going to come back to that. But I'll
Okay.
let you know. You and our audience know that this might surprise you, but the U.S. has never lost to England at a Men's World Cup.
I don't even think I knew that. I know. I mean, how many times have we played them? I know two.
3 times.
3 times. Okay. How'd the
So
boys do against them that first time?
they actually won. This is in 1950, but the
Wow.
U.S. beat England in the 1950 World Cup. It was a famous victory, a famous upset, the OG upset, if you will.
Yeah,
And
sure.
since then, they've played 2 draws, which you're probably more aware of. One being in South Africa in 2010, and then a couple of weeks ago or last week in Qatar. So there you go. The U.S. is undefeated against England in the Men's World Cup.
That's a good one to know. I'm gonna
Good
pocket
to
that
know.
one next time I talk to any English people.
And there you go. Now, speaking of pocketing, there was one striker who was left out of the squad, Jordan Pifak. He's
Yeah.
pretty prolific in the Champions League, actually. So I have to ask, would he have made a difference, and should Berhalter have given him a chance?
Well, one of my takeaways too has been the absence of Ricardo Pepi. And to your credit, PFOC has had a much better last 365 days than Pepi has on the pitch. I think that kind of, even the fact that this conversation that we're talking about two strikers that we didn't have on top of all the strikers that were there, not that any of them really underperform. I think a lot of people had problems with Haji Wright. I thought Josh Sargent did well when he played. It's just, he didn't. None of them scored. So, but PFOC technically scored, but Anyway, again, not the group stage, but yeah, with PFOC, I think that he's good. I think one of the reasons why Berhalter decided not to go with a striker like that is number one, he had Haji Wright, who fits a similar kind of profile in terms of like how they play the game. Bigger guys, more people that you would want to play if you're gonna pass a lot of balls in the air. You know, you want them to win headers and whatnot. So I think it kind of speaks to like how Berhalter approached the entire group stage in the World Cup was he didn't really necessarily want to get in a situation where he was having to do that. He wanted to play people that were better with the ball at their feet, getting other teammates involved, not losing possession, things like that. So I can understand why he had to go with just one. To be fair, I don't know why he went with PFOC or Haji Wright over PFOC because they've both played for the U.S. in the past and not really been anything special. So he had to pick one, maybe was his mindset, and for whatever reason, he went with Haji Wright. So yeah, I mean, potentially, but at the same time, I think, and I'll probably speak on this throughout um, this conversation, but I think it kind of speaks to how aggressive our mentality was, which is something I can respect and I appreciate really because it just shows that we weren't intending to have to play a game like that where the US have played in the past, like every time we're ever in this competition. Now we can actually dominate the game on the ground, you know, passing the ball, retaining the ball, possession. So it's good and bad. I mean, it might have made a difference, but not to get ahead, but the Dutch were just so good on that day and it just wasn't our day. But
Oh, don't you worry. We'll get into that. And like I said, you've already qualified for the next World Cup, so don't
exactly.
worry. And
Yeah.
one of the other teams that has qualified because the US will be closed in 2026 is Mexico. They're part of Group C, along with Saudi Arabia, Argentina, and Poland.
Right.
They may not be in as good as shape as the US. US has had one of the youngest squads, definitely the youngest squad in the knockout
Second
round.
youngest, yeah.
But Mexico, a team that is we're used to seeing in round of 16, didn't get there. So, what was your takeaway from Group C as we saw it?
I was surprised, to be honest. I thought Poland would go through over Mexico. I'm sorry, I thought Mexico would go through over Poland. Poland, to be fair, one of the most poor teams going into the knockout round. I would say, based off their form in the group stage, they weren't ever really impressive. You know, they kind of just got results, but they grinded them out the entire way. You know, so with Mexico, I actually was sad to see them not go through, but more so maybe the fact that what you're saying, you never, I don't know, it's always weird to see like a dynasty fall. You know, like the Patriots in the NFL. I hated them growing up because I'm a Ravens fan. But then whenever Tom Brady and Belichick separated, it just was like, man, they're just not, it's just not the same anymore. It's kind of weird. You know, you've lived with it your whole life. But it does feel like that's what's happening with Mexico a little bit. Not that they were ever the Patriots, but it feels like they're on a downward trajectory, even going into, I mean, 4 years from now, but it doesn't look good. I mean, even the MLS compared to Liga MX they're on, it's the same trajectory. The MLS is on the up and up, and Liga MX are losing a lot of talented players. So I think it's just bad signs. And you don't, as much as like we have that rivalry with Mexico, it's kind of, I don't know, you don't really want to see it. So yeah, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, and one problem that they had, even going from qualifying or the recent Gold Cup and CONCACAF, was the striking options. And they moved on from Chicharito, they moved on from guys from, I guess, the previous generation. They still have Kevin Lozano out there, but
Mm.
the goal scoring Dom, like the dominant guy up top, didn't see that this time around. And I feel like it was to their detriment. I don't know who they're going to find in the lead up to the next tournament, but they're also going to have to find a manager because Tata Martino was out.
Right.
The moment
Yeah.
they didn't make it to the next knockout round, he was gone. So, yeah, disappointing. But you touched on the MLS, and the MLS is going to have one Lionel Messi come through. He is set to join Inter Miami next summer. Now, the question is, will he have a World Cup winners medal when he goes off to Florida next year?
Mm. No, he
No.
won't. I don't think so. I mean, you know, they're still in it. They looked better maybe against Australia than they've looked. I mean, they lost to Saudi Arabia, but really, at the end of the day, I wouldn't say it's on Argentina that they're not going to win. I think they're a really solid team. They're going to be a tough out. I think the problem for them is that there's too many other teams that are in scintillating form right now, and when they come across them, like they're going to have to beat Brazil to even get to the final, and that is going to be extremely difficult to beat a team like that right now. So Messi's playing well too. I mean, they got that first loss in the first game of the group stage. They've recovered and they look like they're back to their old tricks and whatnot. So not going to be easy to beat him. But if you're asking me if he's going to win, no, he's not going to win.
Okay. I mean, I definitely agree with you in terms of their improvement. I would say they're possibly one of the most improved teams from the beginning of the tournament where we're at now. That Saudi defeat was just a jolt. It was like a punch in the mouth. Is what they needed. And maybe they bought into the hype because since then they've just put the foot on the pedal. They've just been solid at the back, and they've really been focused, and they've been a little bit more decisive up top. I still like to see a little bit more from Taro Martinez.
Oh yeah, but I mean, imagine him in good form, because he's been out of form this entire tournament. All it takes, Harry Kane hasn't scored. He scored first goal in the knockout. If you get that man scoring goals and getting his finishing boots on, that could be the difference that could propel them to win the entire thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Indeed. And one of the other favorites to win it all is France. And they were in Group D along with Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. So I would say it's not about what did France do right. It's what are their weaknesses. And you're a Man United fan. So let's talk about Raphael Varane.
Whoa, how is that connected to weakness for France?
Because he's the weakest center back in that lineup.
Wow.
I said what I said.
The lack of respect. And,
yep,
if he was wearing a red kit in the Premier League, I wonder if we'd be hearing the same things right now. But
maybe.
No, I think I honestly do disagree with. I think the defense in general for France is suspect at times. I can't really get past Group D without just being upset about Denmark, though. Like they didn't win a game against Australia or Tunisia. They tied and lost, and ultimately did not make it out of the group. Your thoughts?
Now, if you remember our previous show, I did say that some teams are going to benefit from the conditions, right? Yeah. And Australia spends a lot of time in the Middle East as a part of qualifiers, and also they play Asian Cups there from time to time. Tunisia as well. These conditions aren't completely foreign to them. I feel like, well, for one thing, those early kickoffs, so many strange results happen in those 5 a.m. Eastern kickoffs. Teams were just literally feeling the heat.
It's true.
And so that's one factor. Denmark also chose not to, the players also chose not to bring their entourage or the family, the girlfriends and partners with them. That may have factored into it as well. But yeah, you're right. It did look like they kind of didn't want to be there.
I don't know. I mean, I had such high hopes for them. I thought they were the Croatia of this tournament potentially. And yeah, to not make, I mean, I'm a quarter German and I'm still borderline more upset about Denmark failing to advance out of the group stage than Germany. So I'm just disappointed. I don't know. I can't explain that one. But hey, credit to Australia. I know the funniest thing about it is if anyone else besides Denmark was going to go through in that group, obviously France, I would have said Tunisia. So I'm just so shocked that Australia made it through. Credit to them. I know like a lot of like people from Australia didn't expect anything from that team. they're
Hmm.
just kind of happy to be there, literally, which is
Yep.
not a bad thing. It is cool to be at the World Cup. I can say that. I'm American. I missed out last time, so it is cool to be there. And it's maybe even better to have very low expectations and then to um, outperform them. So hey, credit to them. But yeah, just upset about Denmark.
Yeah, it ruined all my group stage brackets because I had Denmark going through. I had
I
Denmark
did
winning the
too.
group. I had
Yeah,
Denmark making the final, to be honest, but
yeah.
nope.
There you
Nope.
go.
But yeah, you got to take your hat off to Australia. They showed a lot of heart. They scraped. They were one of the last teams to make the tournament. They beat
Right.
Peru in a playoff, and then each game they just showed heart. They scored first against France, and then France kind of
But hey, they scored first though. If it was over after who scored first, they would have won that game. It's important to
right.
remember.
Yeah, if you got points for scoring first, well, that's an idea. Points for scoring first. Maybe FIFA should look at that.
Hey,
That could shake up the World Cup in the future.
I kind of like that.
Mm, yeah. Anyway, something to think about. One team that scored first in Group B was Spain. They put 7 up on Costa Rica,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they scored first against Germany, and then they lost against Japan. What was your
yeah.
take on Spain in this World Cup? Well, the group
Well,
stage, at least.
yeah. To keep to group stage, I mean, they kind of did exactly what I expected them to do. They dominated the hell out of possession in every single game that they played. Um, they kind of struggled. Well, I was about to say they struggled to score. Outside of that game against Costa Rica, they did. They felt like there's a lot of countries in this tournament that are lacking like a really quality striker, which
Mm,
that's why it is hard to find that obviously because you might get 4 chances in a game and you basically have to score at least one
mm,
in order to be incredible at your position to be world class. That's about what they're converting at. Yeah, so Spain, obviously, they let it rain against Costa Rica. But yeah, it went almost exactly as I thought it would. They got first in the group, right? Or did Japan get first in that one?
Japan finished first. Yes,
That's right on
they
the
won
on
the
the
group.
last game. That's right. Well, I think hindsight. I think Spain would have some regrets over some of those results and missing some of those chances that they had and not doing enough with the possession that they had. Because in this tournament, it comes down to England in the last World Cup. They had a little bit of a favorable path to the World Cup semifinals. They just did, and that's
Mm,
because they finished first in their group.
mm.
So that's what that can give you is you can avoid a game against a team like Morocco who finished first in their group and proved to be a big problem for Spain. So
Yeah. Well, don't forget there was like a it was a short space of time. It was like a minute or 2 minutes of time where on that last day, Japan and Costa Rica were going through from the group. And that
oh
was
right,
like
yeah,
that was the World Cup at its peak.
that would have been. I mean, Saudi Arabia beating Argentina, a lot of people say that's one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. I think yeah, it probably is. But if that would have happened where those two teams would have gone through over those other two teams,
Mm.
I would have remembered that for the rest of my entire life. No doubt about it.
Faces would have melted. Faces would have melted.
Absolutely. Would have been nuts.
Absolutely. Now, Germany, they were disappointing once again. Went out early, lost to Spain. Sorry, didn't lose to Spain, but they
Yeah.
drew with Spain, which is as good as a loss. And then drew, and then couldn't get results against Japan and Costa Rica. I mean, if Costa Rica hadn't got smoked 7-0, they really could have gone through, but that's what got
Right.
Spain in the end. But Germany, what do they do now? I mean, I guess this is it for the likes of Neuer, Muller, Mario Götze. They really have to start again, right?
Well, the nice thing about the German talent pool is that they're doing okay. It's not ever so much of them having a lack of talent as much as it is just the final product, the final 11 plus subs that make it out on the pitch, and then the tactics and strategy that go into every game. They're never in a position where they're just getting out out talented by another team, if you will. So in terms of a rebuild, yeah, like you said, a lot of those key players, they're just going to be too old and really, I mean, maybe Neuer. He's a maniac. I could see him pulling off kind of a Buffon kind of twilight to his career, especially in that position. But again, there's plenty of German goalkeepers that are young that could fill in potentially. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they're going to have to make replacements, if not only because of the fact that it's going to be 4 years from now. It'll be interesting to see how they approach, World Cup qualifying in the meantime and the Euros. What kind of team they put out in the Euros will obviously give us a really good indication of what they do in 2026. But I actually saw today they decided that they were not going to fire their manager Hansi Flick. He's a former Bayern Munich manager. And one of the things I liked the most about Germany going into this tournament was I felt like he was one of the best managers in the entire competition. So it really did surprise me. I think they had the tactics right for the most part. Germany generated the most XG out of any team in the entire World Cup, expected goals. They just didn't get the goals. And maybe they're missing that striker. Honestly, don't think that was a problem either. I think it's one of those situations where if they could have replayed, the Costa Rica and Japan game, 8 times out of 10, they probably win. They did beat Costa Rica, but, I think it was just kind of down to a little bit of bad luck. But that's not going to be good enough to think about for 4 years if you're a fan of German football.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with that. I mean, the Japanese, they are they look like one of the fittest squads out there. They play to the full 90, and we'll get to their game against Croatia later on. But they finished their matches strong. So I feel like Germany, maybe they felt they'd done enough against Japan, and then Japan put on those subs, and game changed. And they just run so hard at teams.
Yeah.
So there's that. Spain, as we know, they're death by possession. They'll kill you by keeping the ball off you.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you this though. Germany, as you said, coached by former Bayern manager. Spain, coached by a Barcelona legend, Luis Enrique, and has with a number of Barca players. Do you think Spain deliberately engineered the results in that last round against Japan so that they would knock out Germany, considering what Bayern has done to Barcelona in the past?
What an amazing question, first of all. I think, like you said, the reason I don't think that's the case is because, like you said, for 2 minutes there was a window where neither Spain nor Germany were going through. And I think as long as that's a possible scenario for you, if you're in charge of Spain, then you have to that can't even cross your mind for me. I think you got to win that game and finish first. And if I will say, if it comes out where that did cross his mind, then man should get the sacking immediately from me, because at the end of the day, all right, so for every Spanish fan who is upset at Bayern Munich for beating Barcelona, what about all the other Real Madrid fans that are like, let's go Bayern Munich, but now you're going to affect the entirety of our country because, so no, I don't think so, but I do appreciate the thought. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we'll see Costa Rica in 4 years because, well, the best 3 teams in CONCACAF automatically qualified. And one of them is Canada. They were in Group F with Belgium, Morocco, and Croatia. Now, this group did not pan out the way that many thought. Belgium were expected to win the group. They did not get out of the group. And Morocco would end up winning the group.
Yeah.
I certainly did not see that coming.
Yeah.
What was your take on this, Zach?
Well, to my credit, I did know that chaos was going to ensue in Group F, and it certainly did. I think, yeah. I saw when I saw all these groups for the very first time, I just pinpointed on Group F, and I was like, that's just not fair. That's just not. This is going to be crazy. Every game is going to be nuts. and it certainly did not under deliver on those expectations. I think with Belgium, man, there's the Kevin De Bruyne interview that came out in the middle of the World Cup. I believe it was after their first game. It might have been right
Yeah,
before their very
yeah.
first game,
This was
where
after
he
the
said,
game against Canada. Yeah,
"Okay," he said, "We're too old. We're not gonna win this tournament." And I was just like, "Okay, I guess Belgium's done. Like, I guess they're just waving the white flag already." And they did. Like they were. I remember in that third and final game against Croatia, they just weren't playing. Like they had no urgency to them whatsoever for the last like 20, 30 minutes. And I just could not understand it. So that, to be honest, they did not deserve to go through. I'm very glad that they didn't, because they just would have gotten train rolled by whoever they would have gone up against. I think they showed some of the least amount of heart that I had seen in the entire tournament. They're up there with Qatar, to be honest with you. So for me, disappointing, but at the end of the day, you can't have that mentality in this group and make it out. So no, I'm not surprised. I wasn't. If you would have told me at the beginning that they wouldn't go through, then I would have been pretty surprised. But also Lukaku was out. I think that hurt them a lot. But you know, Morocco has been incredible. If you haven't caught a Morocco game, do it as soon as possible. Um, Croatia, I thought that they were going to be kind of more like the Belgium. I thought they were going to be a little bit too old, too aged, too many games going on in the middle of a season. All their key players are very much involved at the club level for all their teams. So I just thought that they wouldn't have the legs. That might prove to be the case throughout these knockouts. I mean, but either way, they've done well. I felt for Canada, it felt like a lack of World Cup experience for them proved to be really the difference. Their team just didn't have the depth that they needed. But what a fun team to watch throughout the tournament. Um, so yeah, this group, so many different storylines and different dramas, and it was probably, I think it was my favorite group. Maybe the Group B U.S. group, but if not them, then Group F, man, it was a joy.
yeah. Group F was a joy, and believe it or not, Morocco are yet to concede a goal from their opponent's boot in this tournament. The
That's
goal they
nuts.
the goal they conceded against Canada was an own goal. So we're still waiting for the opposition to score against them from their own boot.
And they got a team that just dropped 6, so that'll be an interesting one. But we're
Hmm.
getting ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, we shall see what happens in the knockouts. We'll get to that for sure. But they definitely are flying the flag for Africa. And yes, another team from Africa was Cameroon. They are in Group G along with Serbia, Switzerland, and Brazil. Now, Brazil doing Brazil things. Are they your tip to win it all?
They are. Yeah, I would say so. It's kind of like a little bit of a mind and the heart kind of deal. I think my brain is telling me Brazil, because why not Brazil? Basically, they've just been incredible throughout the group stage. They struggled throughout the group stage a little bit, but not really in the grand scheme of each individual 90 minutes. They were really in charge of every game that they've played in this tournament. Um, Not only in domination, but also in just their flair, their swag, how they approach each game. Uh, it's just been Brazil at their peak, which I think I have a soft spot for. I think it's like soccer at its finest, is like Brazil at their peak. So I'll be kind of rooting for them. Why not? Why not my heart then? I don't know. I just think Portugal is a team that is going to be. I think they're going to be in the final. I felt that from before the World Cup started. I kind of thought, like, we can talk. I don't want to get ahead, but we can talk about like Ronaldo. The
Mm.
fact that he did not start. None of that really surprises me. They're so good. Like Portugal on the squad, the talent is up there with France. I mean, like if you think
Mhm.
in Brazil, they're up there with the most talented players on the squad. But anyway, with Brazil, yeah, I think back to the mind. I think that they are certainly favorites to go all the way, no doubt about it. I think they will be in the final.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think it does depend on the health of Neymar. They look like a very different team when he was injured for those 2 games towards the back end of the group stage.
Yeah.
And now that Gabriel Jesus is injured, Alex Tellez is also out for the tournament. The injuries are starting to stack up a little bit.
Yeah.
But as long as Neymar's out there, they got a very good chance. But we'll get to that. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
You gotta hold me back.
All good. I will say I was a little bit disappointed in Serbia because Serbia has
Yeah.
such an attacking, so many options. They got Mitrovic,
Mhm.
Tadic, Vlahovic, and there's one other gentleman. But
I think that those are the main three you're good.
right, and yeah, just
Kostic, maybe.
it was a tough group, but I thought we were going to see a little bit more firepower. It did come out in the end against Switzerland, but the ship had sailed a little bit by then. Now, moving on to Group H, the last group, we've got Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and the South Korea Republic. You mentioned Portugal, stacked squad. Are they better when Ronaldo's not on the field?
And okay, it's tough because that question does involve the knockouts, but obviously things went well for them in the round of 16, winning 6-1 without Ronaldo starting. That's the first game that he had not started for them. And yeah, I mean they are better without him. But the problem with Portugal, after saying what I said about their talent and my expectations for them, is that they do have a dynamic within the squad. Unlike really maybe Argentina a little bit, just because you have Messi there and there's all this pressure on Argentina to win the World Cup. There's not really any pressure on the rest of the teams. I mean, there's maybe France a little bit, but to be fair, they made it out of the group, whereas the last 4, 5, 6 winners failed to do so. So they already kind of got that pressure off of them. I think there is pressure on Portugal, but also there's a little bit of drama. Just all the eyes are on Ronaldo, which I'm sure he loves. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how it plays out. That being said, can't really say because there's been drama since before this tournament started for Portugal, and it doesn't seem to have affected them too much. So, I saw Ronaldo. I was watching the game. Ramos is scoring a hat trick in replacement of Ronaldo. Ronaldo's smiling, he's laughing over there on the sideline. So you never know. I mean, he said that if Portugal won the World Cup and he didn't score a goal in this World Cup, that he would take that. So I guess we're gonna find out potentially if he's right, if he's telling the truth.
We'll see. We'll see, because he's yet to score a goal in the knockout rounds, which we're going to get to in a second. But before we do that, I got to do a victory lap. Because last show I made a bold prediction that all 5 of the confederations at this tournament will be represented in the round of 16. And that's what happened. We had the US representing CONCACAF, the Senegal and Morocco representing Africa. We had a record 3 nations from Asia in terms of Australia, Japan, and South Korea. And then the usual European and South American representatives.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible. It was a close one a little bit, but you did get it.
Got there in the end. The US got me over the line when they beat Iran.
Close one.
Yeah. So looking at the bracket, we've had the round of 16 finish up just yesterday on Tuesday. We had 8 matches, and I kind of want more.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 6 matches kind of went a little bit chalky. The favorites won, but then Morocco. We're going to talk about Morocco. They put up they were like General Costa. They put up a stand for 120 minutes. They would not give in. Spain had 1,000+ passes. That's not hyperbole. Hyperbole. That's 1,000 literal passes. They could not break down Bono and the defense. And then when penalties came around, they still couldn't get through. 3 penalties, all missed.
Ooh, I mean, you heard Luis Enrique saying that he gave them homework assignment from the last World Cup, that each of them needed to take 1,000 penalties. Was it the World Cup of the year? Either way.
Yeah.
Each of the players had to take 1,000 penalties for their club. before going into this tournament because they got knocked out on penalties last time around. So for me, Morocco winning in penalties, not a huge surprise because of how they played in the group.
Mm,
But Spain not scoring and also just the penalties that they took after hearing that they took 1,000. I mean, it just goes to show that you can practice all you want at times, but whenever the lights are on and the crowd is there, you can't duplicate that. You can't. It's not the
right.
same as when you're taking a penalty at on the training pitch. So it's tough, but I gotta say I was definitely pulling for Morocco. I mean, I don't want their story to end.
Yeah, and they got definitely got the local support. I mean, it's like the Arab world is coming. That Morocco has Africa, they got the Arab world. They got
Beautiful.
so many different groups behind them now. So they got like 1 or 2 billion people now rooting for them, maybe more.
Right. Yeah.
And you could feel it in that stadium, the energy. Everyone was just behind them. Well, the
Yeah.
majority was behind them. Another team that I had tipped to win was actually Japan. In my bracket, I had Japan beating Croatia.
Close.
Unfortunately, they weren't able to get it done on penalties, but they did push the Croatians all the way. They they scored first, then Perisic came through and equalized just after half time, and
Beautiful
then
finish. Yeah.
it was a very beautiful finish. But yeah, they just couldn't find that finish in 120 minutes. So yeah, that was unfortunate.
It was, and it's even more tough. Maybe the way that they played, maybe they did just run out of legs. They did it through very difficult group stage games and to an extremely high level. But it is possible. It's a short time frame. This is the very first time that we're having any stretch without any games. So they've been going nonstop up to this point. So it's difficult to maintain that play style. Maybe that weighed into it. Also, I mean, let's not forget Croatia is a team who made it to the World Cup final in 2018, and they won 3 games in extra time. They took out Luka Modric in this game. They subbed him out before penalties, and I had to do a double take. Like, what is, like when I was watching Morocco, they had a lot of tired legs from some of their superstars. They wouldn't dare take them out because they knew,
Mhm.
penalties were on the horizon. So the fact that Croatia did that just kind of, I think it was maybe it was a little bit of a mental kind of mind game to Japan. Just saying, you guys have played a hell of a game, but we have experience. We know what we're doing here. We'll prove it. We'll take out our best player, the guy who's most likely to bury a penalty. We're going to just take him out. We don't need him. And it has to be said, it obviously works to a degree. So they played a hell of a game, Japan.
Mhm.
A really great team. They're going to be a force for the foreseeable future because it does seem like there's a bit of a dynamic change in how they're bringing people up and whatnot, and also the teams that they're playing for, very similar to the U.S. in that way. But at the end of the day, they had to come against a very experienced team with some of the best players in the world. So that's the beautiful thing about the World Cup, and kind of the sad thing about it is there's just so many talented teams and players from all over the world. There's no easy game. So
There's no easy games. Now, on that point, would you say that the gap is closing between the teams from Europe and South America and I guess the emerging nations, if you will, from Africa, CONCACAF, and Asia?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I think that played into how excited I was going into this World Cup was just that I felt like the teams that weren't the best teams in the group were better than they normally were, and that's why I felt like there weren't any easy groups in this tournament um, for the most part, and it really didn't play out that way either. I don't think any team had a cruise going through the group stage. Even the very best teams in the world, in the one of the teams that's going to win the World Cup had a tough time in the group stage against these teams, almost definitely. So yeah, absolutely. They're stepping up. I think that it just goes to show like the game in general is getting better um, everywhere around the world. I think just resources and you're starting to see like players kind of make those jumps to different leagues and start, once that happens, it just, when it rains, it pours. And it just, it's because if you're like a top club, say you're Manchester United, and you bring in someone from Tunisia, like we did with Hannibal, maybe we keep a closer eye on that area because we see, here's this player who's amazing and can have a bright future. Why wouldn't we? It's not a lot of other clubs know about this area yet, so let's scout everything that we can, and then it's a domino effect. You're from that area and you see all these players going to these huge clubs. It just inspires you more, and so it just grows and grows.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of bright futures, let's talk about the U.S. against the Netherlands. This would be like therapeutic for you, it'll be good for you. It'll be cathartic.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Take us through that.
Yeah, it was really just an example of us just not at our best at the end of the day, which is tough because for 80% of the group stage, we were amazing, in my opinion. We did have bad moments in the group stage, and we had more of them in this knockout round. I will say, so the three Netherlands goals were all primarily due to mistakes from a U.S. player, which I look at the bright side and I kind of think, well, at least there was three of them and we didn't lose 1-0, and it was just one guy's fault, because no player from the U.S. deserves to take any blame moving forward for the next 4 years or anything like that. So at least it happened to multiple people and not just one. Tyler Adams had one of the best tournaments any player in the World Cup had, and he's partially at fault for one of the goals. So it's not to go and say like anything about how he's not a great player, because he was just fantastic. So I think the other aspect was that the Dutch were just lethal with their finishing. Like every half chance that they got, they buried and made it look easy. And I honestly think a lot of that came down to the tactics from the manager. And I think he expected Louis van Gaal, the manager of the Netherlands, who's probably one of the better managers left in this tournament. I think he expected the U.S. to not dominate possession, but to hold our own in possession and to create chances. I think that was part of their game plan, to hit us on the counter or wait for us to get tired just from running up and down, and just punish our mistakes. And that's what they did. And we were definitely outclassed on the day, but looking forward to the future. Great experience for the second youngest team in the tournament, the youngest team in the knockouts, like you mentioned. And it's only going to help us in the future. And again, the Dutch are such a solid team. We're going to get into the game against Argentina, but talking about Messi winning the World Cup, first he's got to beat the Netherlands, and that's not going to be easy.
No, it's not. And one thing the Netherlands did do well was the play out wide. You talked about the counter, but Daley Blind, Hansel Dumfries, when they had the ball and they were moving into that final third, they were very clinical, very troubling. And I believe it was definitely the last two goals, and maybe even the first goal as well. It was a case of the quick transition out wide, and then just finding that spare man. There's always seemed to be a spare man in orange, and it was brutal. It's brutal, but it was very, very clinical from the Dutch.
Yeah, and you got to tip your hat. And I don't know. It's gonna take me some time to digest. I would have liked, because it doesn't feel like we were at our best in that game. Maybe just mentally, maybe again like Japan, we didn't have a ton of rotation with some of those key positions. It was the same guys, for 80 plus minutes every game. But again, they're young. You kind of expect them to be able to. I don't know. But either way, we weren't at our best. We made mental errors. It would have been interesting to see how that game would have played out if we were really sharp and on top of it. Just to. Yeah, I think the goal that we scored was ridiculous. It was an accident, like to put it accurately. It just wasn't what he intended at all. But we did score, and so say we only make one mistake and it's 1-1. A game goes to extra time. Hey, you never know. things could have gone differently. Pulisic in the first 4 minutes of the game had a one-on-one with the goalie and just unlucky not to score, but things could have been differently had he put that away. So there's a lot of really positive things to take away, but at the end of the day, we weren't at our best. We didn't deserve to win, and you kind of hate that that's how we went out. But yeah, we're still positives.
Indeed. Now you touched on Argentina. They did beat Australia in the corresponding round of 16 game later that Saturday. Messi gets his first ever knockout goal. Surprised to say, but yep, after 5 World Cups, he finally breaks the duck in the knockouts. And one thing that stood out to me for Argentina is their depth. We didn't see Dybala or Di Maria on the field in the whole game, and Lautaro Martinez came on late. So in terms of depth, I think Argentina has the best squad depth of any team in the World Cup. We could disagree, but if what I'm saying is if Messi goes down, there are other players that can fill the void. If Neymar goes down, I'm not so sure if someone can replace that dynamism. And if Ronaldo goes down, he's probably going to hobble and try and stay out there. But that's Ronaldo.
That would involve Ronaldo being on the pitch at the
That's true.
Of the game. Anyway.
That is a good point. Yes, it is.
No, I see what you're saying. They have depth for sure. I probably would disagree in terms of them having the best, but again, I think that they're definitely up there. So it's reasonable for you to say. But in terms of, we looking at Netherlands here, or are we looking at Australia?
Argentina, Australia.
So in that game, I will say Messi was incredible. Specifically, like the last 15 minutes of that game, it was like young Messi with his creativeness and like his turning and just ability to create space for himself. But it was like old Messi with like wisdom and like kind of trying to get other players involved first. But if he needed to, he'd be able to wiggle out and make something happen. So if he's playing like that, Argentina can go places. If he's not, for me, I think if they were to lose him, which knock on wood, don't want that to happen at all. But I do think it would be an issue for them because, again, like I said, Argentina is a team that they have a little bit of side action going on with their squad. Where one of the best parts about Argentina is that I think most of the players that are playing at this point for them are like, yes, they're playing for their country, but there's a big part of them that are playing to be a part of what can give Messi that World Cup. Like they're playing for Messi in a lot of ways for me. And that is kind of it plays into them like wanting to do it for their country too. They want to win the World Cup. So I think if they were to lose Messi in a game, it could go one of two ways. It could either motivate them even more. You bring on someone like Dybala, who I don't think I've seen him at all in the world. Has he gotten any minutes? I'm not sure. But he's a really good substitute for that type of role in Argentina. So it could work out fairly well. Or it could kind of send them into like a downward spiral where, we lost our savior, the guy who's going to lead us, and they could fall apart. We will see how it plays out. Hopefully that never happens, like I said. And as long as Messi is healthy and playing, especially the closer we get to a final, I'll put it this way: if Messi makes it to another World Cup final, I don't know if he would lose it.
So, yeah. Well, there's no Gonzalo Higuain to muff the chances this time around, and hopefully Lautaro Martinez is not the new version.
But they do have another Argentinian striker who's been messing up some chances. So.
Hopefully not. But you mentioned the guy who's leading the team, who's now out of the picture, and France lost Karim Benzema. It seemed like not too long ago, but we were talking about Benzema going into the tournament as a Golden Boot winner. Right. He's the Ballon d'Or holder, but he was a Golden Boot favorite. He didn't even hit the pitch. He got injured. He's still on the squad, though. I believe that's so that he can get a medal in case they win.
Good.
But there's a new challenger for the Golden Boot. His name is Kylian Mbappe. You may have heard of him. Pretty good at football,
Yeah.
soccer.
Couple nightmares from some weekend league games in FIFA from that guy for sure.
There we go. But he has 5 goals in the tournament. He scored a couple against Poland. He leads the Golden Boot race. So my question is this: is he going to win the Golden Boot?
Oh man, yeah, he will.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will. I think, but there's so many variables that go into that. I mean, I like because who else is up there with the
You
Golden Boot?
got
We got
Gakpo's up there
Gakpo,
as well.
Rashford
Uh,
is in the ballpark.
Yep, Messi's up there as well. Believe that Messi has 3 or 4 at the moment.
Okay.
Richarlison from Brazil has 3, maybe 4.
Oh yeah, I guess Gonzalo Ramos is now in the conversation after that
Yep,
game.
Gonzalo Ramos after
Um,
the hat trick.
so for me, obviously, I mean, what if Gonzalo Ramos is actually just that good and Ronaldo
Right?
doesn't start anymore and he's not going to score a hat trick every game? But the thing is, you only need 5 or 6 goals and you got this thing. So with Mbappe, part of the reason why I think he will is because I think they have England. If I'm the French manager, if I'm Mbappe, I don't want anything to do with Kyle Walker on that right-hand side of the English defense. I'm going to plant myself right in the middle between John Stones and Harry Maguire, specifically Harry Maguire. And I'm just going to attach myself to the hip of him and just have people either play it into my feet and I'll just turn and just outrun him, or just play it over his head and I'll also outrun him. So I think there are not only will France go through and give him the opportunity to play a couple more games, but I think Mbappe is scoring 2 goals in this game against England at least. He's just in incredible form. If you haven't seen any of Mbappe in this tournament, I'm sure there's YouTube highlights of just this tournament that, yeah, I mean, he's by far the best player in the tournament at the moment. And he's just, everything he touches is turning into gold right now. So pretty terrifying France as an opposition. But in terms of watching one of the most entertaining players of this game, yeah, I'm all about it. Give me more.
Give me more. And historically, well, going up previous tournaments, 6 goals has been the magic number to win the Golden Boot. So if he can pass that with a couple more goals, he's probably got it sewn up. But there's a couple other players to look at for sure. And you touched on England with Stones and Maguire. I'm going to throw Luke Shaw in there as well. You got the French front setup of Giroud, who can hold up the ball as well as score in his own right. Mbappe, who we've talked about at length. And you got Griezmann, even the midfield, Rabiot. These guys can they can kill you in the middle, and they can also quickly throw it out wide if they feel like it. I just, England will have to have their scoring boots on in that game against France in the quarterfinals.
Because France is going to score.
Yeah, France is going to score. So England, they're going to want to keep up. You got to wonder if they scored all their goals against Senegal. And I do think Senegal were a little bit unfortunate in the sense that Sadio Mane wasn't there.
Right.
I do feel like it's a different result if Sadio Mane is on the pitch. But this is the game that we love. It's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. So I'm sure we'll see Senegal in the future World Cup, and hopefully Sadio Mane is there. But they just ran out of gas in the end against the Lions of England, 3 Lions of England.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I'm thinking that Southgate's going to approach this game a little bit more pragmatically, like he does in the knockout round of tournaments. I'm expecting a 5 in the back, more defensive approach. Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. France can do this as well when at times they can be conservative, but England are next level conservative, and some will even say cowardly when you consider the talent at their disposal. It's all about results at this stage of the tournament. They will do whatever it takes to get a result. Southgate does not care what the media has to say, what the fans have to say. He doesn't care if it's pretty. He just wants the results. So I could definitely see Declan Rice being a guy just passing it around. Maybe they just launch the odd counter-attack here and there,
Mm.
try and catch the French out. As we know, Mr. Varane, I've got my finger on Mr. Varane. Maybe Kane runs into him and tries to, engineer a penalty kick or something out of that. But
Yeah.
Southgate has no qualms in terms of reducing the aesthetics to get a result.
Right.
So we shall see what happens in England and France. What are your takeaways on the rest of the quarterfinals? We got some odds from the good people at FanDuel. So just in terms of England and France, in case you're wondering, England are plus 102 and France minus 124 on Saturday. What else do you see in the final eight coming up?
Well, first of all, I love those French odds. That blows my mind a little bit. But maybe I am sleeping on England a little bit at the same time. I'm gonna go ahead and write that French one down, I think. In terms of the rest, so I mean, this is regular 90 minutes, I'm assuming.
Mm,
Oh no, this is to
yes.
qualify for the next
Oh,
round.
this to advance. Okay. Oh, wow.
Beautiful, even better.
Even better. Okay.
That French line is looking extra spicy, even now. Um, I think, man, this is so tough. I think Morocco have the potential, but at the same time, I think Portugal is going to go into that game. I don't think Ronaldo's starting that game. I just don't
No.
know what would have changed from one game to the next, especially after the result 6-1 against a team that you've struggled against in the past, in Switzerland. What would change to make you say, you know what, let's go back to the original? Just doesn't make sense. And I do think, like I said earlier, I do think that they are more dangerous, with him as an option off the bench, just because it's the same as Manchester United. I mean, we don't need to get into the deep specifics, but I just don't think. I think you have to have a really good circumstance to have Cristiano Ronaldo start 90 minutes for you every game. You need to
Absolutely.
have a really beautiful midfield and winger. Everything has to be perfect in order for him to fit in, and that's kind of hard to do from an international level. You don't really get to pick your players all that much. You kind of, I mean, Portugal again has an extremely deep roster, but at the end of the day, how much are you going to give up so that you can start one player that hasn't scored a knockout goal in 20 years? Anyway, so for that reason, I think Portugal probably will take care of Morocco, but I mean, just in terms of looking at the odds, it's a very interesting one. Argentina Netherlands is about right for me. I
Mm.
think I'd look at the Netherlands honestly, especially to just qualify, because I do think that they're so solid and that they've been playing, and the tactics have been spot on as well. So really interested to see how the Dutch set up in that game. Um, and then obviously, I think it's just a little bit disrespectful to Croatia as well. I think I expect Brazil to win, certainly, but at the same time, we're saying that Morocco has a better chance to beat Portugal than Croatia by a significant margin. I don't know about that.
I'll meet you along the way. Now, consider that both teams did play an extra 30 minutes, which I think does start to factor in as we get to the final eight. Interesting nugget. Another interesting nugget for you in the audience. Of all final eight teams, every one of them is coached by a manager who's from that country. There are no foreign coaches left in the
Really?
World Cup. And no foreign coach has ever won the FIFA Men's World Cup in the 92-year history. Something to keep in mind. So maybe the US hangs on to Berhalter and they have a glorious victory in 4 years' time at home.
Okay. Yeah, sounds
Maybe.
good.
Maybe. Well, I'll let you um, marinate in that for a little bit. But just in terms of the Morocco-Portugal matchup, Morocco, in my opinion, they stack up very similar to Switzerland. They have that block in defense. They move well. Okay, one thing Switzerland doesn't have that Morocco does have is pace. Right, Hakimi and
Yeah.
Ziyech. Hakimi from PSG, Ziyech from Chelsea. They move quickly. They did that against Spain, and they caused them problems when they did counterattack. So for Portugal, yeah, you mentioned Ronaldo. He's also 37. Okay,
Yeah,
you want
fair
to
enough.
load manage condition. His conditioning is important. You want him fresh for the latter stages. In this game, if I'm Portugal, I go with Ramos again, and I go for an early goal. I'm mindful that Morocco hasn't conceded yet.
Hmm.
So what I want to do, I want to hit him in the first half and get a goal quickly, at least two, and
Love it.
then let's see what Morocco does in terms of an adaptation. Because Moroccan coach, I know him from African club football. He coached Wydad Casablanca. They won the African Champions League. He's a very defensive coach. But some of these guys, tactically, I want to see what their plan B is when they fall behind early. Because then Morocco has to open up, and we could see, hey, if Portugal scores early, we could see the over, which is probably 2.5. We could see that being under threat in this game.
Yeah. But if you're
Absolutely.
Morocco, I love it, by the way.
Mm,
But if you're Morocco, that you're kind of hoping for that a little bit. You would love Portugal to come very aggressive and be able to hit them with those quality. Really, it's just two players on the same wing, Hakimi and Ziyech, uh, and you're going to drive down that flank and see if you can't make something happen, take an early lead. And now
mm.
Portugal are the ones under significant pressure. So that'll be the game plan, I think. But like you said, it's a matter of who's putting the ball in the back of the net because that's going to determine how the game plays out.
Yeah, I think Morocco would rather just sit back. It's effectively a home game because if you
Right.
saw what it was like against Spain, it's going to be like that plus 20% against Portugal.
Absolutely.
They're going to leave even more people behind them because now that they've seen what they can do.
Right.
We'll get to predictions later on, but going to that Croatia-Brazil game, yeah, as long as Neymar's fit, which it looks like he will be, I, I don't know how you stop uh, Brazil. I know they've faced
Yeah.
them in a couple of previous tournaments. They faced them in 2014 and 2006. But Brazil, they not only have that attacking threat, which they've had historically, but they also have a pretty decent defense. Alisson's a solid goalkeeper, who we know from Liverpool. And Thiago is like a fine wine. He's doing all
Mm.
right, even at his age, he's doing pretty good.
Thiago Silva was like my favorite center back to watch when I was playing like 15 years ago.
Mm.
And Mans is still playing. He's playing for Brazil. He's starting for Brazil, like, and killing it still. It's just incredible. It's nuts.
Remember when Brazil got beaten 7-1 by Germany in 2014?
I do, yeah.
There were two players who were missing that day. And the result would have been a lot different, by the way.
Neymar and Thiago Silva, right?
Thiago Silva was suspended and Neymar was injured. So as long as you
Yeah.
have them, okay, maybe not Thiago, but you definitely need Neymar in there. You have that threat. And okay, this plus 510 is a little bit disrespectful to Croatia because we've seen what they can do in previous tournaments, in the Euros as well. But the Seleção, they look like they're on a mission.
They
Look like
do. And that's what I think about, any game in the past that they've played against each other. I don't think it's in the same ballpark as the Brazilians right now. Like you said, they're on a mission. I saw a video of Richarlison, who's in the conversation for potential Golden Boot winner, and he was talking to Ronaldo, R9, Brazilian legend, one of the best players of all time. And it was an interview, and they're just right next to each other, and Ronaldo had said something like, it's fun to watch you guys and whatnot. And Richarlison is tearing up, like crying, just telling him how much of an inspiration he was, how much of an inspiration Neymar was to Richarlison. And they're playing on the same team. Just think that there's too much on this one for Brazil. They got too much firepower, too much drama, too much emotions that are just positively tuned to send them on their way. That they're a force.
they are a force. And for me, the game of the round here is Netherlands and Argentina.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ball prediction time. Ready?
Yeah, I don't think so. No. Give me a second.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
the winner of this game between the Netherlands and Argentina will win the FIFA World Cup in 2022.
Whoa.
I said what I said.
I'll tell you what. As crazy as that was, what you just said, at the end of the day, for me, the hardest game for that team would be the next game against Brazil, potentially. So
What? Mm,
if they can get past Brazil, then, and obviously if you're in the final, there's no reason for you to think that you couldn't win it. But if you beat Brazil on the way, that'll give you all the confidence against whoever you go up against following that. So I think I don't see Brazil getting beat, but I'll tell you what, if you can beat Brazil, then for me, you are now the favorite to win as well. So I like it.
Okay, I probably shouldn't have given you the goods so early. I should also point out that I do believe that the winner comes from this side, so it will be one of, okay, argument's sake, Croatia, Brazil,
Okay,
Netherlands, and Argentina is coming from that half. Now this is
gotcha. Whoever comes
so.
out of that half is going to win.
So that's my secondary bowl prediction. But the bowl prediction is Friday, 2 p.m. We're going to see the future World Cup winner in action.
Love it.
Now, the Netherlands, they've been very solid. They've been solid throughout the tournament, solid from day one. My my one issue with them is, and I know Cody Gakpo scored 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
I'm not wishing any ill will on him, but where are the goals coming from? If something happens to him, or if Argentina just lock him up, where are the goals coming from?
To be fair, again, like I said, if the U.S. were at their very best, I think it erases two of those goals from the score sheet and just leaves. I'll give them again one mistake that we make and they bury us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take away all our mistakes, for me, they don't score a goal. And if you take away our goal that wasn't even a goal, then it's 0-0 in that game. It's very close to a 0-0 game, actually.
Right.
So to your point, it does make sense. I think if you're the Netherlands, in that game against the U.S., it's a little unfair to say that they couldn't have scored when they were up. They had that game, pretty much under their control the entire time. And how much of that was tactics or a fail on their part to do like what Portugal did and drop six? Maybe that was their plan, was to drop six. And they did not do that, but they handled the situation that they were dealt. Now they're dealt a much more difficult situation, and we will see how they do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Argentina has a more talented roster than the U.S., more experienced, all of the above. So they're going to have a more difficult time um, getting going in that game, I think. But again, I just think I have so much respect for how they tactically handled that first game. I'm interested to see what he draws up for this tie going in against Argentina, and I think that might give them the edge.
Okay. I mean, that's one thing I'm looking forward to for Friday. You got two tacticians, Louis van
Yeah,
Gaal and Scaloni. The one thing I did observe from Argentina in terms of what they like to do is they definitely like to play it out wide, and then so Saudi Arabia was mindful of this, and Australia did this to some extent as well in the round 16 game. They were trying to negate Argentina when out of possession. They would try and monitor the wide channels, and then they would have people waiting in the middle so that Messi couldn't really do his thing. Messi and friends in
mm-hmm.
the middle. So if I'm the Dutch, I know I've got Virgil van Dijk, I got Frankie de Jong in the middle. So I need Daley Blind and I need Denzel Dumfries to go to another level. I need them to be just monitoring those channels. Do not let the
Well,
Argentines go down wide.
they did well last round. I can vouch for that. Those two players were magnificent last round. So they'll be entering this one with high confidence at worst case scenario. We'll see if they can execute it to the same degree that they did, but those aren't two bad players to be relying on at this point.
Absolutely. Now, if the game does go beyond 90 minutes and if it does go towards penalties, I know Louis van Gaal is going to do something because I'll never forget 2014 when he brought on Tim Krul to win
Yeah.
on to get the win on penalties. So
Yeah,
he's always got something up his sleeve, Mr. LVG.
it
And
does.
shout out to LVG, man. He's fighting cancer. It's gonna be his last tournament as a manager, but respect, respect.
Absolutely.
Now I'm gonna drop my predictions for each of the four quarterfinals. Let's see if we on the same page. But for me, I'm gonna take Brazil over Croatia.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Argentina over the Netherlands. I'm gonna take Portugal over Morocco. Although if there's gonna be an upset, it's gonna be that game. And I'll take France over England. What say you, Zach?
I'm with you. I'm I'm stuck on this Netherlands Argentina game. But I'll put it this way. If I think Argentina will go through. If the Netherlands goes through, it'll be because they earned it like they did last round, and I won't have any problem with that at all. And I think that, like we talked about, I think that they could go all the way, especially if they were able to get over that hump that's called Brazil. Um, so yeah, I think. But that being said, I do think Argentina will. I think that they're going to play up to the moment, and I think that they'll know that this is going to be the hardest game that they've come across. But this is a team that just won Copa America by beating Brazil, mind you, in the final. So it's not the biggest game. Well, it probably would be the biggest game that they played, but I wouldn't say it's been the hardest game that this team has come across in the last year and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll give them confidence too. And I do think it's going to be a great game. Cannot wait. But I would back them to go through.
Yeah, and remember they did have that insane streak over a year or two where they had 35, 36 games undefeated, and then they threw that all away against Saudi Arabia. But
Right. Hey, and the Dutch are on a streak, similar in terms of games unbeaten. So it really is the best game of what is it, the quarterfinals? Yeah.
yeah, and it's gonna be good footy. Good footy.
Absolutely. Cannot wait.
I look forward to that. So if we took a forward look with our four quarterfinal predictions in play, that means we'd have hypothetical semifinal of Brazil versus Argentina and France versus Portugal.
Yeah.
So what would you see in those games next week, which would be on a Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday?
I would see some of the most hyped and anticipated games of all time, I would say. Okay, Brazil, Argentina in the World Cup semifinal. Just stop right there. I can't. Like that would just be amazing. Like obviously both teams just want it so bad. Like they've spent the last I don't know, 2002 was the last time I think that either
Yeah,
team had won.
last time
2002
Brazil won.
Brazil won. And then obviously everything with Messi. But wow, that would be great. And then you have Portugal, France. You have France who year in year out, like just a surplus of options. The team that they did not bring to the World Cup is nuts, like
Yeah.
crazy talented. They're always going to be there. They were there in 2018, especially when Mbappe is. I mean, we got another 2 World Cups in front of us besides this one where Mbappe is going to be dominating. Hopefully, he's healthy and all that. But then you also have the Ronaldo of it all. You have the Portugal of it all. A team that is absolutely on fire. This is, I would say, I don't think I've heard the term for this team, but if you're talking about like Belgium's golden generation, I feel like this is a golden generation for Portugal, but I haven't heard anyone say that really.
Now, there is a reason for that. There is a
Okay.
reason for that. So in the 90s, Portugal had a golden generation that won the World Youth Championship. It was Luis Figo, Manuel
Mhm.
Rui Costa. Pretty sure Nuno Gomes was in there as well. It had this core of uh, players, and their tournament was meant to be. They had a great Euro 2004 at home when they lost to Greece. They
Yeah.
probably should have won that. They went out of the 2002 World Cup in controversial circumstances, and then they made the semifinals of the 2006 World Cup. So that, to many, is the golden generation of Portugal. So that's probably why you don't hear it this time around. But this is definitely the next gen.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. And again, the other aspect too is it doesn't feel like they're going to be any worse in 4 years either. It feels like, again, they might be better than they are right now. So maybe that'll be more of a second gen. Maybe this is a little bit more of an in between with a few older players like Pepe, who was playing
Yes.
the entire 90 minutes of that game against Switzerland. So yeah, I hope that's how it plays out, but at the same time, I'm going to be happy with no matter how it plays out, just because any team that beats, if we get an upset like Morocco over Portugal or Croatia over Brazil, it'll be because that team earned it. And I think that's one of the beauties of this tournament, this type of competition, is that any team can beat any team. You have to get the job done every game that you play. It's not a matter of who's got a better team on paper. It's about all these different things going into 90 minutes, which is beautiful. So I'm down for anything that happens, because I think that we've been blessed with such a great round of quarterfinals. The matchups are amazing. But yeah, I mean, let's hope that happens. If England goes through, that's also fine by me, because they are incredibly talented. I don't see Croatia making it to back-to-back semifinals. That would just be a little bit too much. That'd be like Cinderella going back to the ball, and I don't think she ever does that. So, but yeah, can't wait.
Right. I mean, strange things have happened, so we'll definitely have to see what happens there. But just want to get your final prediction to win it all. Last show we talked about some players who could be putting themselves in the shop window for the January transfer window. I believe you mentioned Bellingham.
Yeah.
But who's some other players who have definitely put the case forward after the games have been played so far?
Quite a few. Cody Gakpo from the Netherlands was already linked to Manchester United in the summer, as well as Leeds United. He'll be linked to more teams in January, and if not January, then certainly in the summer. He will not be on PSV next year. You have the likes of, for me, again, Tyler Adams was just incredible. And we relied on him so much, and he was just a force. Every game, he had one tiny little just moment, but on the whole, you have to be impressed with his performances. And then for me, Amrabat from Morocco's the holding midfielder, and has just been an absolute rock, just up and down the pitch, making challenges everywhere, winning challenges everywhere. Doesn't seem to put a foot wrong. He's 26, so he's still got plenty of legs left in him. And I think he's on Fiorentina right now in Italy. And I'd like to see more of him. So I just want to see him play more. I hope maybe I just need to start watching Serie A more, but hopefully we get him in the Champions League, or we can get him on a team that we can see week in, week out a little bit easier. So those have been the players that have stuck out for me, I would say. What about you?
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. Those guys definitely made a name for themselves. I also like Mohamed Kudus. Yeah, we only saw 3 games of him for Ghana, but he plays for Ajax, and who knows how much longer he'll play for Ajax. He's so dynamic. He plays number 9 as a striker. He plays number 10 to play out wide. He just gives you so many options when he's on the field.
That was a player too who was struggling to get into the Ajax first team and was trying to get out of there, I believe, before this season started. I don't think he's going to have any problems getting out of there if that's what he wants after this World Cup. That's for sure. He's been incredible.
Absolutely, and that in a similar vein, I'm going to bring out João Felix from Atletico, because he seems to be on the outs there, but he's coming with Portugal. It's almost like, Fernando Santos has put his arm around him and said, "Hey, everything's going to be okay."
Yeah.
And the link up play between him, Bernardo Silva, and Bruno, it's just something else. It kind of does outweigh having Ronaldo on the field. And with Gonzalo Ramos as a main man up top, they are very hard to stop.
Yeah.
So as an Arsenal fan, selfishly, with Gabriel Jesus injured for a few months, I wanted them to go out and get João Felix because I know they can
That
put
would
Martinelli in the number 9.
that'd be the kind of move that could actually seal the deal for Arsenal, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah,
won't
so
do it, but yeah, it'd be a good idea.
yeah, absolutely. They'll say they're interested, and then it'll end up at like Man City or Chelsea or
Yeah,
someone like that.
yeah.
What about someone like Christian Pulisic? Is he going to hang around in Chelsea? Or is he moving on?
I don't think there's any reason for him to. I mean, he's clearly, it is strange an American owner purchased Chelsea. At the same time, if I'm the American owner or if I'm a fan of American owners in European sports like that, I don't want him. I think Graham Potter, I do like the hire of Graham Potter. Not to go too far off subject, but I think you bring in someone like that who can really imprint their DNA on a club and like put a system together that's highly effective. If it pans out that way is one thing, we'll see. But if Pulisic is not part of that plan, which it doesn't appear that he is because of playing time for Chelsea, I think Pulisic wants to play. I would have liked to have seen him move prior to the World Cup, but at the same time, kind of glad he wasn't playing so that he could ensure that he's healthy. But certainly now, after the World Cup is over, he's got to get out of there. Hopefully, another Premier League club. If he goes back to the Bundesliga, that'd be good. Because he could go anywhere that's willing to play him. Anywhere that hopefully is in the Champions League would be great. But I can't imagine. I just couldn't see. There's no reason for him to stay for me. And he had a good World Cup, so if anything, Chelsea gained a few extra bucks out of it too. So
Yeah, maybe they'll try to do a swap deal for Bellingham, send Pulisic back to Dortmund and try to get Bellingham on the way back. But that might be a hard sell.
yeah, I
Um,
think some money would have to go towards Dortmund for sure. But hey, who knows?
Absolutely. I mean, this guy has links to the Dodgers, and they're not afraid of spending money, so it could happen.
Yeah,
Now, I'm going to ask one question on the U.S. national team for the group stage. Gio Reyna,
yeah.
would things have been different if Gio Reyna had played more minutes in the group stage?
That is like the one thing for me where if there's a negative, it is the Gio Reyna of it all. And it really got highlighted when he did come on against the Netherlands in the second half because he played good. Um, so for those that aren't aware, Gio Reyna is one of the more talented players on the U.S. roster. He's also one of the younger players. His father, Claudio, played for the U.S. men's national team, was a legend. Gio plays for Dortmund now and apparently he was hurt. Says our manager Berhalter said that he had an injury and couldn't play in the first game, which we drew against Wales 1-1. And then Gio Reyna after that said, "No, I'm good. I'm fully healthy. Could have played if I wanted to." So from there, just kind of sparked into what's going on. Something's happening, and there was I mean, it's not a dark cloud or anything over the club or the team or anything, but it was weird. And again, like I said, he came on and he looked good. So could he have filled that role as like a false nine or something, playing that striker position for us and just having someone of real quality up there? Especially like I said earlier about the way that we wanted to approach these games and how we were going to play. Seems like he would have fit in really well. So there is something to be said there of what could have been, but I'm going to hold off on judgment until maybe hopefully we can get some more information on what exactly went down because it's we've had issues in the past like Weston McKennie during qualifying got sent home in the middle of World Cup qualifying, missed like 2 games because of some issues off field. So if it's something like that, as much as it sucks, I can't really blame Berhalter for he's already drawn a line in the sand, and that was made pretty clear. So it just depends on what happened. But yeah, I'd like to know more because it could have made a difference.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never
Hopefully,
know.
we will know.
Oh,
We
in
just need
four
like
years.
an
Hopefully.
autobiography or something to come out.
Oh, that's true.
They
Hopefully
normally
they'll be it.
tell a bunch of good stuff in those books, so you just gotta wait for the
Yeah,
books.
gotta wait for that book to come out. Wait for that book
Yeah.
deal. Do you have any other thoughts on the group stage, the round 16?
I think main takeaways. I was really disappointed in Belgium. I think that's really the last we're going to see of them. I mean, they'll probably be in tournaments, but it feels like they don't have anywhere near the same kind of like they have young talent, but they don't have the type of young talent like Lukaku. 10 years ago, we knew who Lukaku was because he
Mm.
was like 16, 17 at like West Brom. He's from Chelsea, but playing for like West Brom, Everton, and doing really well. Look, he had a really bright future. And it doesn't feel like they have the same kind of crop. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best players in the world, but not during this World Cup. And doesn't feel like they're going to be duplicating that kind of youth into their team moving forward. So, kind of feels like it's kind of the last we're going to see of like a legitimate Belgium side for a while. And it was an unfortunate way for them to go out because it just, like I said, didn't look like they really cared. It almost looked like they were like, how soon can we book a flight out of here in the middle of the game? So, um, and then yeah, I think what we talked about too with teams outside of the expected, South American, European regions that are really stepping up and narrowing that gap, like you said. And I think that's only going, those margins are going to get smaller and smaller, like in 2026. It's going to continue that trend, I think. And it only makes for more drama, better games, and really just the growth of this sport, which is great. So I think it's on the whole, I mean, it's been an amazing tournament so far. I think that will continue, no doubt. Now we have just the best teams playing each other. So what's wrong with that? Um, and yeah, just looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've still got, I think, 8 matches left, so let's savor them and enjoy them while we can. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Now that does it for our show, our second World Cup show. We'll have another one coming up for the finals, so definitely come back and tune in for that. Um, you can find us on YouTube and Twitch. Definitely find all our content there. Look for important nonsense. Zach, tell the good people where they can find your content throughout the season.
On importantnonsense.com, I do a weekly piece, Footie Fixtures of the Week, where I highlight, not so much during the World Cup, just because there's a lot less games, but I highlight in season, like the best matchups every week with the best teams and the best league positions, or any other dramatic things that are going on in the beautiful world of footy. And then you can also catch me on Twitter at tack_Tomlinson. Just switch those first two initials of my name around, and you'll find me. But yeah,
There we go. And Zach, who is going to win the World Cup in 2022?
Brazil.
Okay. All right.
Brazil. I
There
hope
we
we get
go.
a Brazil Portugal final. Just because I think those are the two best teams.
That would be
Um,
something.
but man, there's a lot. There's a lot. I have no idea. I just think Brazil is the best. And then there's something about Portugal in this tournament for me. So I'm just getting pulled to those two countries.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have Portugal making the final too. I think their depth is irresistible
Mm-hmm.
and they have what it takes. They definitely have the energy within them. So they come out of that half. I have Argentina coming out of the other half.
I like it.
So you know what that means when I'm Messi and Ronaldo in the final.
Oh,
I,
please.
I don't know if the internet's ready for that, but that's all. That's what we're gonna have. And Argentina wins it all.
Hey, I love it. I mean, I picked going into this tournament, I did a bracket and I thought about every matchup. I just had Portugal winning, but I had Portugal Argentina in that final. I just went the other end of the GOAT debate than you. But we'll see.
We'll see. And if France wins it, Mbappe's a goat. It's over.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. He'll probably have doubled his goal tally that he has right now. He'll probably score another 5 goals on his way to back-to-back World Cup titles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there we have it. That's our show. be sure to come back for our follow-up show for the finals. And make sure you join our Patreon to get access to Discord so you can talk footy, betting, fantasy football, all the sports. Just hit patreon.com/important nonsense and you can get in the game there. And as I said at the jump, it's holiday season. We've got some cool threads. Go to shop.importantnonsense.com, use the promo code FOOT, and get yourself some nice sweaters, t-shirts, and other items for you and your loved ones this holiday season. So with that, we're signing off. I'm your co-host NWB, and this is Zach Tomlinson. Thank you for watching.